Hey everyone, Amia here from Resonance Astrology and welcome to my channel. Today we are taking a look at the astrology of the week ahead from May 19th till May 25th, 2025. And yet again, a pretty monumental week that is ahead of us, mainly because Saturn is moving into the sign of Aries, even though that is like way at the mere end of the week, but still we are feeling the shift, especially what we are all feeling right now collectively is just Saturn being at this 29th degrees of Pisces. There's definitely some sort of weight here that is going on, and we're definitely also going to talk about this here. We also have the start of Gemini season, a more lighthearted season, definitely also serving as a preparation for Uranus's monumental ingress into the sign of Gemini later on. In July, not yet, but still, there is definitely, I feel like it just feels a bit preparatory this whole week. And we also have a lovely Venus Mars trine in the sign of Aries and Leo, and this is like the final trine that is happening between both of these two planets. We had the first two trines in water, and so there is a shift that's going on here. We are moving from like the waters and the earthiness into air and fire. So there is a switch up in the energies slowly but surely. And so this is kind of what we're going to talk about this week. We also have on Sunday, the Sun in Gemini trines Pluto in Aquarius. And we also have Mercury in Taurus conjoining Uranus in Taurus, and this is actually the last time that we are getting this conjunction in the sign of Taurus, because next year when Mercury will be in Taurus, Uranus will have already moved into the sign of Gemini again. So the next conjunction we are getting is in the sign of Gemini. So this, like, we're saying goodbye to these yearly Mercury-Uranus conjunctions in the sign of Taurus that have been with us for around the last 7-ish years. So this is definitely huge as well, and things are kind of coming into a close. Again, this whole year really is a transitory phase. It's a monumental shift. Things are taking place, but as you probably know from a lot of like real life examples of yours, when things shift, there is like an adaptation time. Things don't immediately like your life is not turned immediate. I mean, maybe like in the second things flip, but there's like a period where it's like, okay, but now we have to adapt, right? Like maybe Saturn moving into Aries brings a monumental shift right at the beginning for you, but then there is still an adaptation phase, like the initial visitation of that planet, or maybe Uranus moving into Gemini, or maybe even Neptune moving into Aries has already done things in your life, and so it feels like a bang, like this moment of this visitation, but then we still need time to adapt, because every change, yes, can change us, but there is an adaptation time. We still need to there's lots of processing that goes on after that. I'm sure you guys know that if you've had these life-changing moments or like a shock moment or something, maybe the thing occurs in that instant, but the processing and the adaptation takes a long while. So this is why this year is a very transitory year in general, and we are kind of still back and forth. A lot of the outer planets are still going back to their respective signs. The only planet that stays in its sign for the first time is Pluto in Aquarius, currently retrograde, not going back to its former sign. We are fully in Pluto in Aquarius territory now. Jupiter as well, once it moves into the sign of Cancer, will not, even in its retrograde, go back into the sign of Gemini. So this will stay, but Saturn will move back into the sign of Pisces, Uranus will move back into the sign of Gemini, and Neptune will also move back into the sign of Pisces. So the story arcs that have been playing out in these areas of our charts are still not quite finished. Even though we are already opening the new chapter, we still will have to go back and just like probably go over the fine print and everything, especially with Saturn, because the outer planets impact us personally for sure, depending on how, especially if they're aspecting natal planets, but they are very global, shifty. And the personal planets like Saturn, this is where there's like lots of like karmic lessons that are still unfolding. And with Saturn moving back into the sign of Pisces, there's something we still will need to go back to in these Piscean area of our charts, especially that last 10 or even 5 degrees of Pisces. Very, very important. If you have any sort of planets sitting at that degrees, like you will be the most impacted. Let's just put it that way. So this is what I kind of have to say with this. And I think with this, we can actually jump more into this a bit more deeply, talk about everything in a deeper layer. And so on Monday, actually, we're starting off the week with no like major transits or anything like that. I think most of us are still integrating that Sun-Uranus conjunction that happened. I know that was significant for me. I felt it most a few days prior. I think a lot of us are actually still kind of integrating that Scorpio full moon that happened. I don't know how you guys are doing. I'm curious because I feel like I'm definitely still kind of integrating these after effects of that Scorpio full moon. And again, Sun-Uranus was definitely loud for me. I don't know how it was for you, but I did also have some personal planets getting hit by that transit. So that was very interesting. So I do feel like Monday we get the day off, and like, why not? It's good because there's lots of things happening. So like it's a good preparation moment to just think about that. That Saturn ingress and the sun also changing, which is happening on the next day. We are entering into Gemini season. So the start of Gemini season, it's a much more like lighthearted, just like a lighter season in general. Gemini rules over curiosity, over communication, of like sharing, bouncing off ideas and thoughts with other people. Gemini is much more relational. I mean, all the air signs are actually, the air element rules over our relationships, our social interactions. So obviously this is up in the air, and I feel like every time when Gemini season hits, or when there's just a planet moves into Gemini, especially like Mercury moving into Gemini or something like that, I just feel it in the air. And it's usually, at least here in the northern hemisphere, also that time of the year where people are really doing a lot of things, and you just feel it, like the social vibe is up in the air. People are a lot more social with each other, and that's just like Gemini season. Like there's an urge to connect more like intellectually with words, speak to one another. So we are going from this like earthy body of Taurus into this airy mind of Gemini here. Obviously one thing, and we're going to talk a bit about that a bit later because it doesn't happen in the beginning, but one thing that kind of disrupts that lightness of Gemini is the fact that every planet that enters Gemini kind of meets Pluto very early on, but it is a trine they're forming. So it's not a square, because that is a lot rougher. But so there's like a trine forming. So the sun in Gemini trining Pluto in Aquarius is not the worst of the worst things. That let's just put it that way. We're going to talk more about it in a minute, because that's not what happens on Tuesday. What we also have on Tuesday is the last quarter moon happens in the sign of Aquarius. We are, again, and this is why I think we're kind of like still reintegrating that Scorpio full moon that happened like last week. It's usually around that last quarter moon that we're getting this like, I don't know, this like aha moment of like, oh, that's kind of what it was. And after that last quarter moon, we slowly move into the like balsamic moon phase, which is all about like resting more and preparing for the new cycle, which then happens with the next new moon. This is, yeah, honestly, I feel like there's a whole you could just do like a lunation video, because there's so much to be just said about the moon and its ingress and what it does. So yeah, that's what I have to say here. The sun in Taurus, Oh yeah, sorry. I said Gemini season starts, but like the sun moves into Gemini quite late that day. So I was just like looking at my notes. So the sun, while it's still in Taurus, not yet in Gemini, sextiles Saturn in Pisces at 29 degrees. So there is like this final echo here of Saturn, you know, in Pisces, which we're all feeling right now. I don't know how you guys are doing. I do feel like there is some sort of like heaviness level in the air right now, where everyone's just like, I kind of want to move on into the next chapter, but it's just like not fully happening. And that's really what that 29th degrees feels, especially in that last decade of Pisces, which is ruled by Saturn in and of itself. So it is kind of, this transit is, you know, it's a sextile, it's a lighter transit, but it is definitely, I feel like, tying some loose ends, and also like the opportunity to ground some spiritual insights into tangible routines. And you know, it's like one of the last kind of transits that Saturn is getting. So we are like moving into that closure with that sextile, which happen over a cycle of 2.5 years. Saturn stays in a sign for around 2.5 years. And if you want to look back on your life, Saturn ingressed into Pisces on March 7th, 2023. So this is when Saturn first moved into the sign of Pisces. So maybe look back at that time in your life. What happened? It doesn't have to be on that exact day. Usually I would say around the weeks, like maybe look at the whole like beginning of March period. Like what was just like happening in your life? What was moving? And if you know your birth chart, if you know what house Pisces rules in your chart, you can maybe like look at the topics, like if these topics came up, because these topics are now coming to a close, and we are getting it's just like this reflective mode that Saturn is offering by the end. Because Saturn actually really just wants us to move on while we have integrated the lessons. And especially by the end of this transit. And it's not like fully the end, right? Because the retrograde will happen and Saturn will move back into Pisces. So we're not off the hook yet. There's still some lessons to be integrated. But ultimately, Saturn really just wants us to reach that next level of maturity and responsibility over our life. So it's just like, look at the lessons. Like, did you really learn what you have learned? And that's why maybe a lot of things might be coming up that you have already gone through since the beginning of this ingress, just like kind of coming into a close, where it's like, okay, let's, you know, I want to give you this final boost so I can like let you go off the hook in a way where I know that you will make it out in the world with like with all the things that I infused you with. Like Saturn really takes on this teacher figure in our lives oftentimes, and while it might be rough, every single time I look back, I am grateful at what Saturn has done in my life, because I would not be the person that I am today. Like seriously. So I'm definitely in the club of let's not give Saturn too much hate, because Saturn really creates a lot of purpose in our lives. And sometimes we need that, you know, sometimes we need that push to really go and do things. And if we didn't have Saturn, I feel like a lot of us wouldn't be doing that. So Saturn is so necessary, especially in like laying groundworks and foundations in our charts for things, because after Saturn leaves, I guarantee you that part of your chart that where Saturn was traveling in for the last 2.5 years most definitely got like a boost, a new foundation in maturity, in responsibility, and how you handle these topics of that respective house. And you can probably go out into the world feeling a lot better about this area of your chart. So this is what I have to say here. And then again, later on that day, the sun enters Gemini and the Gemini season starts. And even a bit more later on, we have the moon then entering Pisces. So kind of softens the edges a bit of the Aquarius moon's detachment. You know, moon in Pisces always is a bit dreamy, imaginative, So that's just kind of the vibe, especially also over on Wednesday, because there aren't any major transits happening. So we're just chilling kind of with the sun newly moving into Gemini and the moon newly moving into Pisces. So it is definitely, I feel like on Wednesday, if there isn't anything major going on, maybe some new thoughts are being formed. It's definitely a good day to like journal and, move more gently, invest more in your creative work, and just like assimilate your thoughts. I feel like when the sun is in Gemini, the moon is in Pisces, they are kind of squaring each other technically, but I do actually think it is a good balance between like head heavy energy and emotional energy. So you might really get like the best of both worlds, where you are able to combine your thoughts in a way that still infuses your creative work, like still is grounded enough. So I like that for Wednesday. On Tuesday, the energy's picked up again, and we have that Venus in Aries trine Mars in Leo transit. I absolutely love that. This is the third and final trine in this series that we are getting, but the first two times this happened was in the watery signs, when Mars was still in Cancer and Venus was still in Pisces. So now we're switching into water, and this is also happening while both of these signs are direct again. So before that, like both of these trines happened in retrograde motion, like either Mars was retrograde or Venus was retrograde. So there was a lot of this feeling of going back to some emotional wounds, like digging deep. Were there any I don't know, just like emotions stuck in your body that have to do with the past, essentially, and like really processing that. Now we are moving into fire territory, which is a lot more bolder, much more proactive, much more going out into the real world. And I feel like this trines in the water really gave us the foundation to like sort things out emotionally, so that now we can actually go out into the real world and do things. It's much more like embodied desire, The watery trines were much more about like seeing how I feel emotionally about certain things, and now it's like, let me embody that, let me ask for that. It's very bold. Both Leo and Aries, I mean all the fire signs, they're very raw, they're very real, they're very bold, they're very assertive to a certain extent, especially Aries. So it's really about like going out and asking for what you want, because how will people be able to give you things if you can't even say the things that you want? So this is a really good transit for that, like in the most literal way. And definitely a transit that also ignites passion. If you've been in an existing relationship, or you entered a relationship during this period where Venus was retrograde or Mars was retrograde, and things have been kind of feeling flat, this is a day where passion can kind of, turn into a spark, especially now that both of them are out of the post-shadow period as well. So it's like, it's literally a new chapter for us, for Venus and for Mars. And yeah, and you might really get like, confidence and boldness in your romantic pursuits. And what else do you have there? Or in your creative passions, right? It does not always have to just simply be about relationships. For me, actually, a lot of the things that happened during the Venus retrograde were, for example, and this makes sense with it being in my 6th house, were I, for example, completely changed my outlook on Instagram and how I share my posts. Like I revamped my feed, my colors, my themes. I did like the whole photo shoot, which now I have like more professional pictures. So for me, that was a lot of my Venus retrograde through Aries transit, and it makes total sense. I also had I built up a new relationship with money, actually, and it started off by me symbolically getting a new wallet in like a red leather. And for me, that was I made a ritual about this, and like building a new relationship with money, which is also very Venusian, right? Venus kind of rules over money. It also rules over our values. So all of these things, like our values, our romantic desires, our passions, which can be a lot of hobbies, our creative pursuits, all of this can now begin to change, and we can begin to kind of really like express that whatever we have learned and integrated in a way where we are really moving more towards it, like visibly, tangibly. So this is really Venus in Aries trine Mars in Leo. What we also have on that day is the Sun in Gemini is sextiling Neptune in Aries. This is a brand new aspect. Not brand new in that fact that like Sun sextile Neptune, but brand new in these two signs, because Neptune is still newly kind of, we can say, has moved into Aries. So this is kind of the first time in our lives that we are experiencing what it will feel like to have the Sun in Gemini sextile Neptune in Aries. So new energy coming in here, and definitely also positively contributing to that Venus in Aries trine Mars and Leo also happening on that same day. And both of these together, I feel like really sparks that sounds so stupid, but sparks a new spark, I guess, is what I wanted to say, between like logic and vision and like words and transcendence, right? Because Gemini is very like both Gemini and Aries are yang signs, like masculine signs, so to say. So they're more proactive. Gemini in a more like brainy way, and Aries in a more physical way. And Sun is always something we are kind of moving towards to, and Neptune is this like grand new vision. So there is definitely something new we are moving towards in our lives, and it's like a revamp, because this will happen once a year from now on for the next like 14 years till Neptune is in the sign of Aries. Every year we will get a Sun in Gemini sextile Neptune in Aries. So there's like idealism meets innovation type of thing here, and potential for poetic speech, prophetic thinking. So, listen what kind of downloads you're just getting from the universe. There might be some like synchronicities that you're getting. Definitely also look at the topics of the Gemini and Aries parts of your chart, like whichever houses they rule. There might be, there's something is happening. Something is brewing there, especially because there's a bigger emphasis on there. Generally, right, with Uranus then also moving into the sign of Gemini. So, these parts of our charts are definitely pretty highlighted this year. What we also have that day, the moon then moves into Aries, kind of like, even pouring in more fuel to the fire. It's definitely like a fiery week this week, honestly. And, obviously the moon then will immediately also conjoin Neptune and sextile the Sun as well here. So I just think it's adding like more fire to the fuel, in the way that it's adding to like having brave inspiration and like impulsive empathy. Again, it just feels like the spiritual spark that meets instinct. And definitely a good day to like courageously begin something new, guided by synchronicities or downloads that you're getting that day. Super good day for like creative minds. So keep that in mind. That's around a Thursday. And all these energies are carried out throughout a few days. A transit like usually builds up, then reaches its peak, and then it wanes down. This is also why we call it an engagement range. So this is like the peak, but we are already building up to this by the beginning of the week, and this is then still waning by the end of the week. So just wanted to mention that. Then on Friday, we have Mercury in Taurus sextile North Node in Pisces. This is a pretty minor transit. There isn't so much that I really have to say about this. It might just be like, some subtle insights that might be getting dropped for like a future direction or our values. The nodes are important. I do personally feel like they are most active when the eclipses have also happened recently, or when there's like a lot of transits or like harsher transits happening, then you can really feel that. Otherwise, sometimes I feel like they aren't so active. Let's just put it that way. And a sextile really is a minor transit, and Mercury travels so fast, so it's really, it's nothing super crazy that's happening here. And what we also have is then the moon in Aries traveling further is gonna also conjunct Venus in Aries and also trine Mars. So again, we're still coming off that energy. It's reaffirming that Venus-Mars trine, and just brings in like high passion, creative action, bold emotional expression. So yeah, it can be flirty, can be fiery, can be impulsive. So watch out. Like, the best you can do is like embrace like this more playful energy of this, but it can also be reactive. Like sometimes the Aries moon is a bit impulsive, and like it can just get pushed too far in 1 second and then boom, so that can kind of just happen. So it can kind of switch back and forth between like a bit playful and reactive. So watch out for that. But I really love this week for creative, new creative expressions. I do feel like really in the air, a lot of people are realizing how important creativity and creative expression is, and how healing that is. So I do feel like, and you guys can tell me if you're feeling that as well, but I do really generally feel like a lot of people are also taking this more seriously, which makes so much sense with Neptune having moved into Aries. And we already got that Venus and Neptune in Aries conjunction. I feel like for a lot of people, this was a bit of a wake-up call to really take your dreams seriously and pursue them actively, like make tangible, make something real about it. So I feel like we're definitely in a new era of self-expression and like really people taking their dreams and visions more seriously and actually taking responsibility for it. And this will get probably even more amplified when Saturn moves into Aries as well. It's going to make people really be aware of, I really need to take responsibility for this. So, that I can turn my dream into a reality, because there's nothing wrong with that. It's wonderful. So that is that. Then on Saturday we have that, that Sun in Gemini is trining Pluto in Aquarius. So we already had that transit. It's not like the newest transit. We already experienced what it feels like. There is, I feel like, for me, this reminds me of like the power of communication. There can be a bit of an urge to like tell the truth or get to like the bottom of things, or like gaining these insights which are then very transformative, or like these aha moments of like, oh, okay, like this is where I need to go. This is where I need to head. Again, amazing for creative pursuits. This week is like amazing for artistic people, I swear. I'm sorry, I have to say it just again. And on like a global level, there might be like social dynamics that are I feel like both Sun in Gemini trine Pluto in Aquarius is just like the epitome of knowledge is power, and information like is power too. Which also means that withholding information is power as well. And so there might be like kind of an experimentation going on in your life where it's like, how much do I want to share and how much do I not want to share? Because both can be equally powerful and empowering. And Pluto tends to make big things small and small things big. So depending on where you are in your life, either lesson might apply. Maybe you're somebody that talks a lot and way too much. Maybe try withholding some information, keeping things just for yourself or between you and the cosmos and the planets. Not everything has to be shared. Maybe though you're on the other side of that spectrum, I guess, and then sharing something or like telling the truth might actually be that transformative experience that you're seeking. So it really depends where things are happening in your chart. It's also a great day for like strategic thinking and just like investigating your curiosity or speaking from your soul. There's something of like this excavating quality always with Pluto. And then with Gemini in the mind, it really feels like we are excavating our mind. Like we are the architect, like excavating, going into the depths of our mind. So yeah, I wrote here, the mind penetrates what's usually hidden. And sometimes it can be scary, especially for Gemini, that is a more like light-hearted sign. It can sometimes be a bit scary to go to these places. And it sometimes feels a bit like curiosity killed the cat, you know what I mean? Because like you might get too curious and then all of a sudden you uncover something where you're like, oh, and now I know this and I can't go back. Like information gets spilled and you can't unknow it. Like now you know it, and like what then? This is also very Sun in Gemini, trine Pluto in Aquarius. And then we also have the moon entering Taurus that day as well, which I think kind of fits well with that energy, because even if we gain maybe some new insights or some truth bombs get dropped which are uncomfortable, or like new realizations that we have, there's like a bit of a grounding quality of slowing things down and just being like, hey, it's okay to, like process that on a deeper level. So yeah, I think Moon in Taurus is just always this reminder of like, take physical action to like take care of yourself. Like do grounding practices to like take care of your body. Body TM is Taurus. On Sunday, we have Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus. This is obviously important because it's riffing off of that Sun in Gemini, because the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. And so yeah, actually, you know what? The way that this is riffing off is probably like, unexpected realizations. The truths that you might be uncovering might come through a way that is very unconventional, where you're like, damn, I didn't expect to find out about this in this way. Maybe it comes through other people, maybe somebody has been talking behind your back and it comes through an unexpected source, or even like you meditate or you undertake some like a therapy session, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I didn't like think I would get this conclusion in this way, and like, what do I do with this now? Uranus just always has this like unexpected level, so it's like hard to predict how things will come about. What is also kind of important about all of this is that this Mercury-Uranus conjunction in Taurus is happening for the last time in the sign of Taurus. Next year, it will happen when both of them are in Gemini. So, we're saying goodbye to this. And so there might just be like sudden news or breakthroughs that you're getting. And again, it's not a new transit. Like we have been having this every year for the past like 7 years. So yeah, there's definitely like a liberating aspect here as well, right? Because Uranus has a lot to do with like liberation as well. And so yeah, it really depends on your natal chart and how things are getting. But I'm just getting the vibe of like, if you have been somebody that kept a secret for a long time, coming out with it that day might like unexpectedly liberate you more than you thought it would. And it's really a good day to speak truth. Like say things as they are, speak things as they are, think things as they are. And it might lead you to places that you wouldn't think you would come, because when we take truth as the compass, and I know I'm saying this as a very Mercury and Sag ruled person, but when we take truth as a compass, a lot of interesting things happen. Because for me, at least, I always have this, I don't know if it's an analogy, I don't know if that's the right word to use here, but for me, it's very important to always just keep my lawn clean. I'm like, as long as I keep my lawn clean, like as long as I'm okay, like as long as I know that I always told the truth, because I hate lying so much, like it's like my biggest pet peeve, then I'm okay. Like other people can do what they want, like they have to take care of their own lawns, but as long as I know that I spoke truth and I kept my lawn clean, I'm okay with looking myself eye to eye in the mirror. And that's for me the most important thing. And this transit just kind of feels that way, I think, a bit. And then last transit, last ingress happening on Sunday is obviously Saturn is moving into the sign of Aries. This is happening for the first time again since 1996. So, you know, a long time, all the Saturn Aries baby, which is me included, which is actually all of early Gen Z people as well, we're getting our Saturn returns. Obviously also the older generation, so everyone that is turning like 57 till 60, also getting their Saturn return as well. And this is a completely new energy. Here, you know, we are entering a whole new territory, especially because Saturn is in its fall in the sign of Aries. So it's a more difficult sign for Saturn to go through. And we're getting this for the next 2.5 years. You know, Aries has the archetype of the warrior, of the disciplined pioneer together, you could say. And it's a much more structured fire. There's probably lots of things that, you know, if we haven't been careful, if we have been too impulsive, Saturn in Aries is suddenly going to be like, oh, but what are the consequences of that now? You know, we might get a lot of the consequences of our actions now, especially in like areas that we have been a bit too impulsive or not caring, or a bit of like a YOLO attitude that we've been having. And Saturn in Aries might really chime in and be like, we need to take care of this a lot better. So there's definitely like new lessons we're gonna slowly start pouring in that have to do with, you know, assertion, self-leadership, like how we take responsibility over our own lives. Dependence, independence. Aries is a very independent sign. It's gonna refine our willpower. But I am going to keep it a bit short here just because me and Aid, aka Retro Aid, we have made a whole video on Saturn Aries horoscopes. It's almost 3 hours long, so we are going very in depth through the horoscopes, and there is a whole segment at the beginning, which is at least 20 minutes to half an hour, where we are you know, really taking apart the Saturn and Aries archetypes and talking about that. So look forward to that. This is gonna be uploaded on Friday this week. And yeah, I don't want to make this weekly overview too long because it is an overview, right? It's not an in-depth process. So this deep dive will come out on Friday, and you will gain much more insight there, and also have a personal breakdown for your rising sign or your sun sign, depending on what you're looking for. Again, like every sign got like at least a 15, if not longer, minute breakdown. So there's lots of good things you will find there. And this is really how we're kind of ending the week. The week after that, we're heading into a Gemini new moon. So this week is definitely also like kind of building up to that, you know, new moon that is happening. I will also be on holiday the week after that, but I am going to pre-record the weekly overview for next week. A bit earlier. Usually I actually record the weekly overviews on the day that I release them. So I'm recording this on Monday, but I will probably pre-record the weekly overview just a bit sooner. It's still going to get uploaded on Monday as always. And yeah, I'm going to Serbia to visit my family. I have part of my family lives there. And yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm totally looking forward to it. Practically all of my family from my father's side is gathering there. A lot of people are in Switzerland, but some part of it is in Serbia. And yeah, my grandmother is kind of convinced essentially that this will probably be her last trip there. And for her, it's really that's where she grew up, that's where she was born. And so for her to basically have all of her, you know, children and, how do you say us, like I forgot the word. What is it called? Like the children of her children. There is interesting, especially also because my uncle and his wife, my uncle is like a lot younger than my dad. That's why they only got a baby last year. So it's interesting, you know, and she's gonna celebrate her first birthday there. So yeah, it's very monumental as well, kind of, you know, like the whole family gathering there. Like this doesn't just happen, you know, every year. It actually hasn't even happened really since I was born, I think, that really everyone was there. So that's really cool. And I love that for my grandmother, because I really love, respect, and appreciate that woman so much. And yeah, I really love that we can all be there for her. And I don't know, it would just make me feel so proud. Like imagine just like all your kids are there, and all the kids' kids are there. Like she must be feeling so proud, like what she created essentially. So I'm totally looking forward to that. I'm also meeting my cousins, which I have a pretty close bond with. So yeah, Serbia is a good time, even though there's a bit of unrest there. I'm curious what will happen, since I'm going just one day after Saturn moves into the sign of Aries. So I'm like, okay, well, is something gonna happen there? I'm not sure, but you will hear that in the weekly overview in 2 weeks of my trip and some insights. So yeah, this is what I have for this week today, and lots of fun videos coming up. Again, as I already mentioned, Saturn Aries horoscopes and insights on Friday. On Wednesday, we are releasing the Decans of Gemini video. And I will also be recording the 12th house episode this week. So we're ending the house series. This video is probably going to get released next week though, but I did just want to make sure to record it pre-hand, just so I can, you know, put it in the queue and really try as much as I can to relax on my holidays and really be there and not overthink of like YouTube and uploading and all of that. So yeah, fun things ahead. And yeah, that's all I have. If you appreciate this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. It helps out more than you know. I love reading through comments. I love replying to comments. And if you found this useful, maybe also share it with a friend or somebody that you know that could gain any insight from this. And yeah, also make sure to just subscribe to the channel if you like this insights, if you want to hear more horoscopes or deep dives into certain astrological or planetary archetypes. And yeah, that's what I have. All the links are down below if you want to connect with me through socials. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.